Today we dive into the captivating story of Nell Gwyn, a woman who rose from the shadows of obscurity to the spotlight of the royal court as one of the most cherished mistresses of King Charles II of England. Born into the harsh realities of poverty in Restoration England, Nell's life was a testament to her indomitable spirit and resilience. Starting as a humble orange seller in the bustling streets of London, she captured the hearts of theatergoers with her wit and charm, climbing the ranks in the world of drama before catching the eye of the king himself. This video will delve into Nell Gwyn's extraordinary journey through the dynamic era of her time, from her initial steps on the cobblestone lanes of London to her influential role at the heart of the royal court. Her legacy extends beyond her lifetime, challenging societal norms and leaving an indelible mark on the cultural and political landscape. Join us as we uncover how this pioneering actress and beloved royal companion became an enduring symbol of triumph and charisma, deeply revered in British history. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell, so you never miss out on any intriguing historical tales. Eleanor Gwyn was born on February 2, 1650. Her name was spelled in many different ways, which was common in the 1600s. It is unclear exactly where she was born, as the cities of London, Oxford, and Hereford all claim to be her birthplace. The last name Gwyn was very common, making it hard to trace her family origins. Her mother was named Helena Gwyn. Not much is known about her father, Thomas Gwyn, except that he was supposedly a soldier who died in prison in Oxford when Eleanor was still a young girl. She had one sister named Rose who was about 2 years older than her. Left to fend for herself, Gwyn's mother struggled to make ends meet. In a dirty tenement on Coal Yard Alley in London, she and her daughters eked out a meager existence by peddling vegetables, fish, and oysters. Additionally, as Gwyn later confessed, they served strong waters to gentlemen at a brothel. During that era, many girls raised on London streets had a great desire to escape the drudgery of street vending and prostitution. Their driving ambition was to attract the attention of a wealthy, influential man who could provide them with a home and a modest income, effectively elevating their circumstances. Nell Gwyn's physical appearance and vibrant personality worked to her advantage. Additionally, the political climate of the time played a pivotal role. In 1660, when Nell was merely 10 years old, the death of Lord Protector Oliver Cromwell left the protectorship in the hands of his son Richard. However, Richard lacked the leadership qualities of his father, and England had already grown restless under the austere rule of the Puritans. Within weeks, a group of parliamentarians led by George Monk conspired to restore the son of the executed Charles II to the throne. Upon learning of this scheme, Richard fled the country. Soon after, amid great rejoicing, Charles II was crowned the new King of England. The Restoration ushered in a relaxation of public morality and new opportunities for young women like Nell Gwyn. Charles II promptly reopened the theaters and even decreed that women's roles would be portrayed by actresses, which was a departure from the earlier 17th century practice of men dressed as women. The King's House, one of the new theaters, opened right in Nell Gwyn's neighborhood. She was already blossoming into a lovely woman with fair hair, large blue eyes, and a charming smile. It wasn't long before she secured her first theater job as an orange girl, selling oranges and other fruit to playgoers. Nell's beauty quickly attracted the attention of a merchant named John Duncan, who provided her with a small room at the Cock and Pie Tavern, keeping her as his mistress. In late 1663, her sister Rose found herself in a dire situation, arrested for burglary and confined to the deplorable conditions of Newgate Prison, from which few emerged alive. Desperate, their mother sent Nell to plead with Thomas Killigrew, whose son Harry had been Rose's lover, to intercede on her behalf. Fortuitously, Killigrew was the manager of the King's House Theatre, otherwise known as Theatre Royal, Drury Lane. With his assistance, Rose was released from Newgate. Nell Gwyn, having impressed Killigrew with her beauty and candid manner, soon made her stage debut. As an actress, Gwyn excelled in comedic roles, and her beautiful singing voice and quick wit rapidly endeared her to London audiences. However, her rapid rise to stardom was temporarily halted in the summer of 1665 due to the outbreak of the Great Plague of London. Those with the means fled the city as death tolls soared to 1,000 per day. The taverns and theaters remained closed for a year. Shortly after they reopened in August 1666, the city was devastated by the Great Fire, which destroyed much of Old London, including St. Paul's Cathedral, forcing the theaters to close once more. When the King's House finally staged a play called The English Monsieur in December, Nell Gwyn stole the show, becoming one of London's most popular actors before her 17th birthday. As Gwyn secured more leading roles, it became inevitable that she would catch the eye of Charles II, who had developed an insatiable appetite for theater and women during his long exile in France. Even before his marriage in 1662 to Catherine of Braganza, Charles had surrounded himself with beautiful mistresses. Within weeks of his marriage, he reignited his passionate affair with Barbara Villiers, later Lady Castlemaine and Duchess of Cleveland. The king had acknowledged several of Barbara's children as his own, and also had other illegitimate offspring from previous mistresses like Elizabeth Killigrew, Catherine Peggy, Moll Davies, and Lucy Walter. Charles was known to occasionally indulge in dalliances with actresses, and by 1668, Gwyn's lively performance of a merry jig while dressed in men's clothing prompted the king to add her to his circle of occasional companions. Gwyn's quick wit and lively personality endeared her to the fickle monarch. As his passion for Barbara Villiers began to wane, Charles spent increasing amounts of time with the vivacious actress. They shared a mutual love for gambling, horse racing, and country living, frequently spending time together at the king's Newmarket residence. By autumn 1669, Gwyn's pregnancy was quite evident. Delighted by this newest proof of his virility, Charles openly acknowledged paternity and provided Gwyn with a comfortable house, showering her with gifts. He dined with her at least once daily, whiling away the hours engaging in gossip and card games. However, Charles's attentiveness did not blind him to the charms of others. While Nell was pregnant, he developed an interest in Louise de Querouaille, one of his sister Henrietta Anne's ladies-in-waiting. Although considered beautiful, Louise's face was described as simple and babyish. She hailed from an old but impoverished French noble family. Though Gwyn swiftly returned to the stage after giving birth to a son named Charles Beauclerc, the king continued seeing her and provided her with a larger residence at 79 Pall Mall, closer to Whitehall. By 1671, she was pregnant again and gave birth to another son on Christmas Day, named James Beauclerc, after Charles's brother. By this time, Louise de Querouaille was also expecting, and she delivered a son the following summer. By 1672, Nell Gwyn and Louise de Querouaille had firmly established themselves as Charles II's primary mistresses. The king divided his time fairly evenly between them, although de Querouaille's grasping nature ensured she received the bulk of his financial generosity. However, Gwyn was undoubtedly the most popular of all his mistresses among the public. In fact, Nell Gwyn differed from Charles's other mistresses in many ways. She was the only favorite without aristocratic lineage, and she seized every opportunity to mock the noble pretensions of her rivals. Gwyn's lack of pretension contributed to her popularity, as did her indifference to the world of politics and the pursuit of noble titles. Despite having many powerful and influential friends, Nell Gwyn never stooped to playing petty political games. Charles's other mistresses, by virtue of their proximity to the king, built up large factions of ambitious office seekers and constantly badgered him for preferential treatment. In contrast, Nell Gwyn attended plays and horse races with the king and went fishing with him. By 1673, Gwyn had retired from the stage, although she frequently attended performances in the private box provided by Charles. Her home became a sort of political meeting ground, where representatives from all the contending factions could gather to discuss their differences, and where Charles could often gain valuable information. Foreign dignitaries visited often, bringing expensive gifts for Nell and her children. During 1674 and 1675, Louise de Querouaille was often absent, bedridden with a pox she had contracted from Charles or another lover. Although Charles's lax sexual morality caused him to be plagued by various venereal diseases, Gwyn seemed to have been mercifully spared from ill health. As Gwyn approached her late 20s, she grew more conscious of the need for security and responsibility for herself and her two sons. Although Charles expressed his intention to make her a countess, his ministers flatly refused to grant a noble title to a former Orange girl without any noble lineage. However, her children were half royal, so in 1676, Charles was able to secure her older son the titles Baron Huntington and Earl of Burford. In 1684, he further made him Duke of St. Albans. Her younger son was raised to the peerage as Lord James Beauclerc. Until the age of 30, Gwyn enjoyed excellent health. However, in 1680, she fell ill and was confined through the spring season. Tragedy struck in June when her younger son James died in Paris from a bad leg. Overwhelmed with guilt for allowing him to travel abroad and not being present at his deathbed, she secluded herself in her residence. It wasn't until the fall that Charles finally persuaded her to re-emerge from her self-imposed isolation after this devastating loss. While widely praised by her contemporaries for her generosity, Nell Gwyn was actually poor at managing her own finances. However, she was willing to give what little she had to those in distress. Sincerely moved by the plight of Civil War veterans, many of whom had been injured or maimed and then left destitute. She persuaded Charles in 1682 to build a royal hospital to care for them. As the king grew older, he spent more and more time with his mistress, Nell Gwyn. However, after contracting venereal diseases like syphilis and gonorrhea on multiple occasions, the king's sexual activities decreased. King Charles II longed to get away from the constant conflicts at court. Over time, his French mistress, Louise de Keroualle, became increasingly interested in politics. Meanwhile, the king's wife, Catherine of Braganza, was a shy person who was content playing card games with her husband occasionally. Nell Gwyn, on the other hand, continued accompanying the king on trips, going hunting, hawking, and riding horses together whenever he could take a break from his royal duties. By the end of 1684, King Charles II's health was visibly declining. He developed a painful leg ulcer which prevented him from exercising outdoors. On the morning of February 2, 1685, Nell Gwyn's 35th birthday, the king woke up early intending to get her a proper gift. However, while getting dressed, he suffered a severe seizure and was immediately put to bed. Many doctors were called to his bedside. Nell Gwyn and the king's other mistresses were not allowed in his room. Only the queen could attend to him. Charles lingered for several days, but it was clear his death was near. Charles passed away on February 5th. Nell Gwyn did not live much longer after King Charles II's death. She experienced financial difficulties, as did all of the king's mistresses, since Charles and his wife Catherine of Braganza never had a legitimate heir. The throne passed to Charles's brother James II. As a Roman Catholic, James was very unpopular with the people, and he would be forced out in 1688. Despite his struggles with Parliament, he managed to provide enough money to help Nell pay off her debts. By March 1687, Nell fell ill with a stroke, which some of her doctors blamed on syphilis she had contracted from Charles II. By June, she was told she was dying. Her first concern was for her son. Charles Beauclerc, the Duke of St. Albans, had been well provided for by his father. He had a modest income from properties and annuities. More importantly, as a child, he had been promised in marriage to Lady Diana de Vere, the only child of the Earl of Oxford. Diana eventually did marry him, bringing a substantial fortune, and they had 5 children together. In the fall of 1687, as Nell Gwyn's health was failing, she revised her will. She left gifts for all her servants and generous donations to help the poor. Nell Gwyn died on November 14, 1687. The Anglican minister, Dr. Thomas Tennyson, gave her funeral sermon in front of a packed church. He praised Nell for her charitable nature, her kind heart, and her pious and repentant final days. Nell's popularity did not diminish after her death. In the 18th, 19th, and 20th centuries, several biographies about her life were written, all attempting to capture her generous spirit and lively personality. Nell Gwyn's fame has continued into modern times, and she remains the most beloved mistress in the history of the English royal family. Reflecting on Nell Gwyn's life offers insights into how charisma, talent, and circumstance intersected to allow an extraordinary level of social mobility and fame, unusual for women of her time. Her enduring popularity and the romanticization of her life in literature and film highlight the timeless allure of her personality and life journey.